What's up, everybody? My name is Jacob Deaton, and thanks for coming back to another episode of Southern Wedding Professionals, where we talk to really cool people within the wedding industry and sometimes other industries too, that have a unique story or just a really cool people. So today, of course, I have another really cool person to hang out with because I told you that I did. Um, Her name is Anita Amin, and she's with Amina Events. So, Anita, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks, Jacob, for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm so happy that you were available to take the time to hang out with us and for us to get to know you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, just as a background in general, like just to give us some sort of broad strokes to start with here, why don't you introduce your company to us and our listeners and let us know what you do?
Yeah. So I started Amina Events September of 2018. Previous to that, for about 10 plus years, I was in the world of association management and I was working for a company. And the firm got bought out. And so I decided at that point I didn't like the changes and I was going to make a move. And that's when I decided in 2018 to start my own firm. I primarily do South Asian events and weddings. So that's kind of my bread and butter. But I still kept a lot of my corporate and nonprofit and association groups. So I do have a few of those as well. So I would say about 75% weddings and social events, and maybe 25 of still like the association meetings type world as well. So yeah. And then obviously COVID hit. So that was a bit of a challenge. But I'm excited for 2021 and what's to come. So,
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I don't get a chance to speak to someone as that has the specialization that you do
yeah.
with the weddings that you do, and I'm really excited to learn more about this. But maybe let's start with just speaking about, um, when you made that transition in 2018. Um, how did you make that transition so smooth to where you're working as much as you are now?
I will say I was fortunate. I'm raised. I wasn't born here, but I was raised here. I went to Georgia State in Atlanta, so I'm from Atlanta. So I have a lot of ties here to the community, and a big reason for my smooth transition is a lot of the networkings, a lot of the contacts that I had kept um, throughout my years in the events world, whether it be venues and just knowing what's out there in Atlanta and Metro Atlanta, basically. And then just kind of transitioning from the corporate side and working with them on social events. So I would get a lot of business that way. And then my parents live in Conyers, Georgia, just 30 minutes. And they've been a staple in the Indian community for years. So they've been giving me more wedding referrals and stuff. So I have been very fortunate that I have a base and I had a base when I decided to make the move.
That's clutch because
Yeah.
not everybody always starts with that sort of
Yeah.
network to start with. So that's really cool that you were able to keep a lot of your past corporate clients without any sort of uh, conflict of interest or anything like that. You were able to kind of take those along with you as like a nice base. And then, of course, the family pumping you up and getting you some work that way.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm a
uh,
firm believer in like don't burn bridges. You never know when things are going to come around. With social media these days, like you get to keep in touch with all sorts of contacts. So I think a referral can really come from anywhere. So it's really important, I feel like, to wherever, whatever setting you're in, to, represent your company and, um, be self-aware of like a business really could come from anybody these days. So
Speaking of everybody and anywhere,
yeah.
you mentioned like social media and stuff like that. Like, where are you most putting your eggs in baskets as far as like marketing and advertising? And if so, how are you doing it? Are you actually running paid advertising, or are you just literally relying on the power of social media itself?
I've used Instagram has been my primary mode of social media use. I do have some Facebook type stuff, and we have been doing some paid advertising. I do actually have someone that runs my social media accounts for me, just because I'm not good at it. That's just not one of my strong suits. And it's very much something that you have to keep on and be consistent about for it to work. Post weekly, daily, whatever the case may be. But we run a lot of campaigns on Instagram. And then I do have obviously a lot of advertisements on like Wedding Wire, profiles on different in our South Asian world. We have South Asian Bridal Magazine and Maharani Wedding. So I do have accounts, vendor profiles with those websites. But I try to, Instagram is really kind of where I try to spend a lot of my time on,
Sure.
or focus a lot of our energies on.
Sure. And so, is your basic strategy like you're just posting like one time a day, or is it like several times a day, or is it like once a week, or like do you have an idea as to like sort of
Yeah,
how that breaks down?
we try to do 1 to 2 posts a week. And then we try to keep our stories up to date. So, like what I'm doing on a day to day basis, or if I'm on a site visit, trying to keep the story portion going. But post wise, um, one at least once a week, if not twice a week, just to keep it. Because let's be honest, the first thing people do once they hear your name, they're going to Google. So they're either going to, or they're going to go to Instagram and check your page out to see your work. So um, I try to keep my website updated as much as possible, and keep the Instagram posts going too. So
Right. That's really cool. I find that most people are, in the wedding industry are, pretty fixed on Instagram, and it seems
yeah,
to be where everybody's eyes,
yeah.
sort of
And
is.
it's economical, like especially starting out. I didn't have a huge marketing budget. Like that wasn't something but then I realized I was like, you got to spend the money to make the money in that type of situation too. And I've done a few bridal shows when they were happening, and that was, that's a nice place to get some leads and stuff like that. But um, if people don't have anywhere to follow up, and people are visual. They want to see the pictures. They want to see the pretty pictures. Even if it's someone they don't know, they want to see like, oh, that's a beautiful wedding cake. Like, So having a place like Instagram to do that, I think it's a huge, especially for small businesses. I think it's an invaluable resource.
Yeah. Have you messed around with any other platforms aside from Instagram? I mean, that maybe have given you success or not given you success? Have you tried like Pinterest? Do you use Facebook at all?
I
What?
have the accounts. Like, yeah, I do have Pinterest. I have Facebook. I just don't get as much, or we've tried to do the tracking of everything, like when we do posts and stuff. And our social media team, like she does look at all of that. And from what we can tell, our Instagram is really getting the most traction.
Mhm.
But yeah, we haven't really done um, any other type of like TikTok or anything like that. I'm like one step at a time.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, it's all consuming, and the
It
thing
is.
is that yeah, I mean, it's to create original pieces of content for each one of these different platforms, so it doesn't seem like you're maybe copying and pasting to
Yeah,
each one. It's a lot of work, and it really requires, when you really get down to it, someone that's really dedicated to it in a
yeah,
lot of ways, or you become dedicated to it and but then somebody else is picking up another side of your business,
yeah.
rather than what you currently do. So is that the only employee that you have, that's like kind of like regularly working with you, or do you have a team of planners that you have or anything like that?
Day to day, it's just me. I'm the lead planner. Eventually, I would like to expand and bring in more planners under the umbrella, Amina Events umbrella. But I contract out the social media, and accounting and bookkeeping, I contract out. Those are 2 areas. I was like, if I'm not good at it, then spend the money to find someone to do it for you. And again, don't want to get like accounting and bookkeeping important part, but that is time consuming, and um, same with the social media piece. Like, if I'm not doing that, then I'm not, recruiting and, working with my brides. So, it's those are the two aspects that I have definitely contracted out, but everything else. And then obviously day like on the weekend of an event, I do contract out help. But yeah, Monday through Friday, it's just me though.
I mean, self-awareness is really the key, right? Knowing what you're good at and doubling and tripling down on the things that you're great at and that you're supposed to be great at,
Yeah.
and not worrying about being an expert at other things because there's people out there that are.
Yes. Yes, like that was the first thing with the social media piece was like, I could probably do it. I could probably take some online lessons, do some webinars, learn how to do it. But it's time consuming, like to do those pretty videos and to make it like actually engaging versus just posting a picture. Um, is so yeah, I learned very quickly that this is not something that and I don't have an interest in it. Like even in my personal life, it's not something that's super important to me. So um like keeping up with that was a main reason of outsourcing that piece. And it's been a great partnership. So we've been working, Krupp and I have been working together, oh gosh, almost 2 years now. So, and keeping the content going through COVID was super important to me as well. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, I'm super happy with outsourcing what I don't know.
Sure. I mean, I think that's amazing. Uh, to me, have building that team around you that can really support you, to keep you focused on the things that you're great at is so important. And I, for one, am 100% guilty at being the guy that's like, no, I need to know how to do like everything. Like I need to be doing everything. And it took me forever to realize that I needed like a VA because I was somebody. Sort of I guess the right word would be shadowed me in a way, or just got to know like what all I was doing all at one time, and
And
they're like, Jacob, you can't keep doing this,
well,
like you.
ultimately, you're either going to get burnt out or balls are going to stop drop or they're going to start dropping and something's going to have to give. And or it's like your personal life and there's there has to be a balance. And especially like in a small business where it's just one or two people on a day-to-day activity, like I can imagine it's so easy to get um burnt out or things start falling through the cracks and that falls on your brand eventually and um that's not a good look. So
Mhm. Yeah, it was so funny to me because whenever I expanded to having, I was like, okay, I can't continue to do contract invoicing, follow up
little
for.
things but they're time consuming.
They're so time consuming. And like I was like, I can't continue to expand the business and also take care of the business. I either have to choose one or the two,
Yeah,
And so it was like, am I going to be an ambassador for my brand? Or am I going to be just the guy who pushes paperwork all the time?
yeah,
And then so I was like, either I need to hire an ambassador for the brand, or I need to hire an administrative assistant to handle all the work. And I was like, well, I don't want somebody else talking about my brand.
yeah.
So for
You can
me, it
sell
became.
better than anyone. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I'm gonna be the most passionate about it anyway. So, I feel you. Like having that team around you is so, so important. And so many vendors I know that are out there that I've spoken to on this podcast, that are pretty much DIY all the way at home. Eventually in an off-camera conversation, I'm like, hey, do you have a VA? Because if you don't have a virtual assistant, if you don't know what that means,
Yeah,
VA, like if you don't have that happening for you, even at a point to where you just employ them a few hours a week, um,
absolutely.
you are going to hurt your brand actually long
If you
term.
don't like I was finding if you're not responding to leads in an appropriate amount of time, that people are going to go other places. They're going to start quoting and getting like it's reaction time is a big part of it, responsive time. I know like if I don't get back to someone, then they're going to be like, oh wait, if I sign with her, is she going to be this delayed in getting back to like why would I want to sign with anyone like that? So it's a trickle effect. So absolutely, I chose to concentrate on that and making sure I was responsive in my emails and stuff like that, and letting the other stuff contracting it out. Like, and yeah, like you said, a couple of hours. There's plenty of people that are doing things like, and you don't have to go to these big firms or anything like that. There's people that are working, from their homes, just like, and want a side gig. And that may be all you need. So, I think looking into something like that would be super helpful for anyone starting out, and just so they're not drowning.
It is true. And speaking of drowning, let's talk about COVID and how that's impacted your business and sort of like how you're pushing through to the other side of all this.
Yeah. Um, 2019 was a challenge, or 2020 was a challenge. Um, but a lot of it was just trying to navigate, because there's just so much uncertainty. I remember vividly having a conversation with a girlfriend of mine, um, an initial bride, right around March of 2020, and we're like, let's give it, we'll be 3 months, or at the end of summer we'll be good to go. And like, it was the uncertainty of it, and then you as the planner are supposed to exude confidence and know all the answers. And that was just one thing that none of us knew. No, like, no one had a crystal ball. So a large part, like, I had some brides that postponed like 2 or 3 times because we pushed it to late in 2020. That didn't happen. And I still have some postponements still that are still not confident, that they can pull off a safe, and and a lot of travel going on, travel restrictions. So I still have people postponing. So that's been hard. But I think just knowing that we're all in this together and kind of being compassionate about, and I get the contracting side. I understand like deposits and all of that kind of stuff because I'm running a small business too. But I think if we can all figure out a way to be like, work as a team and figure this out, because it's not the bride or the groom's fault either. Like, this is happening. So and as a planner, you're the middle person trying to navigate vendors and trying to appease the couple too. And so that piece has been challenging without having definite answers. Like, I promise by summer of 2021 we'll be good to go. I can't make that guarantee. So um it's the big question marks and unknowns everywhere that's been the biggest challenge. And for a planner who's type A, you want the answers. You're like, how this isn't fun. Like, and then a lot of it, just from like a vendor side of point, with all the venues, like there's been a lot of furloughs going on. People are working on very limited capacities. Some have shut down. Like, so navigating that world, like, how do you get money back from if a vendor's gone out of business, or not everyone's been fortunate to weather the storm. So um, there's just a lot more questions than answers that COVID um, has given us this year. So
Yeah, I can't agree more. It really does come with a level of compassion and understanding for the client themselves, and understanding that it's not their fault, but also um, you know working with vendors, and also understanding that you know when they block out a date and time,
exactly. Yeah.
you've moved it 4 times.
Yeah.
It starts to really hurt the vendor. And
Yes.
like, how do you communicate that? Because I'm sure some other vendors are listening here and wondering, like, how do you communicate that to a bride or a groom when you're talking about maybe moving a wedding for the third and fourth time, and but you're trying to keep the vendor happy, and the vendor's like, hey man, it's been like you know
Yeah.
180 days, or no, not 180 days, like 18 months or something.
Yeah, yeah. It's and we have run into that situation where I've had vendors that have given up very large contracts, and this is the third postponement at this point. And it's educating, and that's part of my role as a planner, is educating the client on all aspects, like whether it's COVID related things or even just contracting of, well, why can't they just give it to me for this? Well, there's expenses involved, and a hotel, like, if you're talking about a hotel venue, you're looking at room block numbers. Like, there's a mathematical, like, they can't just give you everything. So it's being an educator. And a lot of people, I will say, people have been good and they've been really understanding. So uh like I said, the compassion runs both ways. So whether
Yeah.
it's a free booking fee and just understanding that that there may be more financial commitment involved. And but there's been other vendors, like if we've downsized an event and made it smaller, they're willing to change their contracts accordingly too. So, it goes both ways. And that's why I think that's another important reason to have a planner or someone that can guide you with excellent vendors, because with good reputations and all of that kind of stuff. Because if you just go with anyone off the street and you don't know anything about them, they and in any right, all of these contracts, most of these vendors could walk away at any point. No one has to, a lot of the pandemic wasn't in anyone's clauses. So if they wanted to cancel, they probably could just take your money and go and not really there's no real legal leg to stand on. So I think that's another reason to, have solid
Right.
vendors, have a good reputation, because a lot of it is, yeah, it may not be on paper, but it's a mutual, like, I can vouch for you. And so I think that's an important aspect too of, again, going back to the brand and maintaining it. So
Yeah, I've had an epidemic clause in act of God epidemic
yeah.
clause in my contract, force majeure, however you want to
Yes.
say
Yeah.
it. I've had that in my contract for probably years now, and never did I ever think that I was going to have to actually use it.
Use it.
I
Correct.
just had a great lawyer that that drew up a contract for us that whenever I needed an update on my contract for my business, and I was just like, what's this weird paragraph? He's like, you probably
Yeah.
want to leave that in there, but it's likely never to
Yeah.
happen.
I will say
Whatever, blah blah blah.
a lot of them don't include pandemic and like they had like war, terrorism, and all of that. But I was like, every single one you read now has epidemic and pandemic included in there. But yeah,
Yeah,
it was a learning lesson for everyone. But um I think just being able to roll with the punches and trying to do the best we can for our clients is all we can ask for at this point, because no one anticipated that what we would be here February 20 of 21 and we would still be talking about this type thing. I surely didn't. Like but it's been a real eye opener to say the least.
yeah. My even though I have all that, I've had that, and I was one of maybe the few people out there that did. I got to say that like I haven't exercised it yet. I
Yeah.
haven't said you have to whatever. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I've only just continued to work with people as long as they're willing to work with me,
Work.
and
Absolutely. It's a two-way street. Yeah.
as long as for me and my businesses, like if you're trying to find a date and you're like out there working hard to try and reschedule this, like I've been very flexible in trying to make
Yeah.
that happen. So like, and I think that like you're saying, most vendors have kind of been the same because
I
we're in this together.
yes. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and we will all come out of it together. It's just
Yeah, we will. I mean, and you know what? R.I.P. to the people who didn't, because it wasn't their
I
fault.
it wasn't their fault.
And
Yeah. Uh,
I consider myself thankful that I
yeah.
was set up in a way that like I've been able to survive this as long as I had, and so
Yeah.
many people have not, and it's a real
Yeah.
shame.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely. I'm with you.
wah wah.
I know.
Sad topic. Okay, let's talk about something happy. Tell us a little bit about the packages that you offer. And obviously, you handle a lot of you have 25% corporate events, and the 75% wedding events. Talk a little bit about the packages that you offer for both, and
So for weddings and social events, I kind of have three packages. Is what I call full service, start to finish, soup to nuts, um, and from the day you sign me to the day you get married is I'm your person. And then I have what's called a partial. And that's kind of for the in between that, all the vendors and stuff have kind of been selected and you just need referrals. I like to call it more of a consultant. Like you can text me or call me if you have a question, but like you're doing a lot of the legwork of like, contacting vendors and stuff like that. And I will share my vendor list and all of that with them. And then I have what's called, or it's a more recent, more popular weekend of coordination type package. So that's where our couples plan everything, and I come in about a month or so, 2 months out, and create a timeline and basically execute their vision and just am doing the work on site. So our couples get to enjoy the event and everything, all the hard work, and they're not worried about decorators asking when load in is or when load out is, and those little like caterers are like, when, what time's dinner, like all of that kind of stuff. So just executing the event. And then on the corporate side, it's a very much case by case situation. It's I'll have a consultation. What do you need help with? It could just be, I've had people contact, I just need help finding a venue. That's all I need help with, and then we'll take it from here. I need help with registration. I need accreditation help for my credits and registration and name badges and all of that. So that's a very much a customized type uh, packaging and pricing and stuff like that. So
Sure. With the wedding stuff, how much of your business would you say, of the 75% that is weddings, how much of that would you say falls into those three categories? So how much is like full planning? How much?
yeah, it's been I will say probably half and half really. And I do limit the number of full services I take because obviously it is a lot of commitment and a lot of work. So I like to take, if in my like month, like maybe one full service, maybe two, just depending on the size. And then if I have it open, we can take like a day of coordination in there in between. But I do try to limit myself just again so I don't get burnt out or anything. And right now it's just me. Ultimately, if I do find additional help, we can take on more. And I only do one event a weekend, and all of that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, it's probably 50-50. I am seeing a trend of more brides that are getting married a little older, so they have more work commitments. They have more other things that they have to deal with full time that they don't have time to deal with, like plan a wedding. And so I have been getting a lot more of those calls, like, "This is what I want. This is the date. Go and do it," type thing. So I'm like, perfect. And then another popular destination events have become really popular. I'm getting a lot of calls of that, like whether it's Florida or Mexico or, I think that will be another huge trend once flying and everything really becomes open, I guess. Um,
Yeah,
but
people like to talk about the impact of Zoom meetings and how, maybe commercial real estate, going to shrink, and there's going to
yeah,
be a bubble that kind of bursts with that. That said, I think that's probably not a not a far stretch at all. But I do think there's going to be a semblance of like, man, we have not all been in a room together for like 18 months. It is time for all of us to get in a room together and hang out again. And
yeah,
then the future ripple of that, I think, will become very interesting as to which way it decides to play out. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, people want to celebrate. It's human nature. It's you know, like what? Last Sunday was a Super Bowl. It's you have people that have no interest in any sort of football or sports in general, but they still want to be together and celebrate, whether it's with family, extended friends. And like, with the eating out and dining out, like that's definitely taken a change. So I definitely think once we get the thumbs up and we can figure this, and I think people are starting to figure out how to do it safely. Um, I've definitely hosted events this like late 2020. It just depends on the space. If you could do it outdoors, awesome. That'd be great. And implementing some, and knock on wood, I haven't had any like, events that have, resulted in anything, any sickness or anything like that. So I
Mhm.
think if we can ultimately figure it out safely, and people, and obviously the vaccine and everything, I think it'll come back in full force. Like it's people are ready.
But yeah, people are ready. I mean, I talk to brides and grooms and people for events daily, and people are ready.
It's
People miss people. People want to hug each other.
yeah. Thanksgiving was weird this year. Like
So
all
weird.
the major holidays were just weird. I think people are ready, or just any reason to celebrate. So, but we just got to, hang in there a little longer. And I think ultimately we will come out of this full force. So,
Right. And I mean, what cities, going back to like what you do and where you
yeah,
do,
yeah.
what cities do you typically service? Is there one that you're kind of more home based in? Is it here in Atlanta, like where you're based, or?
Atlanta's my home base. I do a majority of my work. But then when I start doing more destination, um, Florida is the biggest, at least for the Atlanta brides to go down to Florida. I've done several events in Orlando. Amelia Island is a very pop for corporate and social events. Back in my previous life, meetings happen in Amelia Island because they have great properties down there. I was down there like every other weekend almost, it felt like. So that one's, and then any beach location really is, it's, us in Atlanta being inland, we just want to try to get out as much as possible. And then like going a little further out, like Cabo's a popular destination for weddings, easy to get to, and they're very, all the properties are very much familiar with South Asian weddings, because there is another aspect when we're doing South Asian weddings, we need to make sure we can get the vendors that we need down there as well. That does sometimes limit where we can go, but Cancun and Cabo and all of them they've been doing a significant number of Indian weddings. So they actually, you can pretty much get everything you need down there now, and their chefs have been trained on Indian cuisine, so you really, you're all set, and all you have to do is bring yourself and your outfits, and you're good to go.
So for maybe people that aren't so hip to Indian weddings
Yeah.
and sort of what they involve, maybe give us a run through about what that is. Maybe the really special things that you got to have for a wedding of this type, and then also like the vent type of things that you expect out of the vendors that you're hiring to be able to provide.
Yeah. So traditionally, if you were an Indian wedding in India, would be 4 or 5 days long. That's like that, and that's on the shorter side. Like they can go, like, celebrations start like a week out. A traditional Indian wedding here in the States would probably be at a minimum 2 days, maybe three. So you start with on the first day, either at the family homes. You start with little ceremonies. The bride and groom are separated at their individual homes, and then the next day you would kick off with what's called a sangeet or a gerba, which is would translate into a musical night. So you could have live bands. That's kind of live music. A lot of just eating, drinking, and dancing, basically. And then you roll into the next day, which would traditionally, you start off with what's called a barat, and that's the groom's processional. And that's where like you'll see horses, you'll see cars, exotic cars. I've had a groom ask for an elephant before. Anything. I've seen a fire truck. So you can get creative, however the groom wants to enter. And then you have the wedding in the morning, followed by a lunch, and then we traditional Indian weddings, we take a break. Like there's a reset. So you change, hair and makeup's done again. And then you go into the reception. So it's at a minimum 2 days, 3 days. And traditionally, like Indian weddings, like if 200 people is kind of on the smaller end of an Indian wedding. Like these weddings can get into 400 or 500, and that's normal.
And
So
so in the tradition, like if you were, in India and you were doing this wedding and it's like a week long.
yeah.
I mean, and I mean, are people just taking a week off from work for a wedding?
They're taking well, like if I were to travel to India, yes, I would, like, if I were to attend but like there they would cut, like the local guests would come for different events. Um if they're in the evening, then they'll come after work, or maybe just one person from the household would come. But yeah, if I were to go to a wedding, we take, obviously, to travel that far, we would take 2 weeks off. And but yeah, it's people, then there's not like a full day event. Like, you could have an evening event or dinner or some things like that. But it's a very, in the Indian community, it is all about community, family, and and a celebration. Again, like we're going back, people just want to celebrate. So um and a lot of these families have long-standing ties in the community. So um you want to invite everyone and celebrate with everyone too.
Yeah, so would it be something like this? Like if they, say your family was attending a wedding, maybe like on Monday, pop shows up, maybe Tuesday, mom goes, like Wednesday, etc. And then maybe you guys all like congregate at the end of the week together to go to the big shebang. Is that kind of like what I'm
Yeah,
getting?
that's kind of yeah. So just depending on schedule, like, yeah, like my we have one coming up, like a family event, and my mom and I will go to one of the events. And there's some events like the henna party is only for women. So there's certain events that, that only women attend and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's usually the Sangeet wedding and reception are the main events that everyone would go to. And then everything else, like you go as you please or as needed, basically.
So now you just gave me a great idea. I want an elephant at my wedding one
Yeah.
day. I
I
now I
don't
can.
know of anyone in Atlanta that does it. I do know there's a company in Florida that does it that you can get.
That's hilarious. So the
Yeah.
zoo doesn't rent out their elephants?
I don't You can get married at the zoo if you haven't seen the new space at the zoo. It's beautiful,
I
but
heard it is. I have not seen it yet, and
shout out to Atlanta. Yeah,
you're actually on my hit list. So Zoo Atlanta, I'm coming for you
yes, it's
for this podcast. Like it's already been real because I heard about this new venue, but
yes,
I've not yet seen it. Uh,
yes, and it
so
overlooks the elephant. So you just have the elephants going back and forth.
it's awesome.
Yeah,
See, now I could see myself like
yeah,
riding in with the elephant or like
yeah,
coming along with like like a leash or something. Like as like I'm gonna be able to control the elephant anyway.
yeah. Of
Uh,
course.
you know, that would be a pretty baller way to enter into,
I think any party, like, let's
yeah.
be honest, like,
Let's be real here. It's like any
I
party.
have arrived. Because like the Bharat, groom's processional is probably the one aspect the groom has control over because it's his to plan. It's like, I've had the exotic cars, and so they're looking up all the like on the exotic car list, like I want this. And like usually it's your event, you take it, and there's a lot of dancing and music going on. So I've gotten some interesting requests. So
Yeah, I bet. I mean, well, everybody's different, right? So I would
everyone's
imagine.
different. Some people just want a golf cart, like a decorated, and we're like, we can do that. Like,
Just go down to Peachtree City. They got a whole bunch of them down there.
yeah. I do remember there was one wedding. Oh gosh, this was a while ago. We did the horse and carriage. And for some reason, the carriage was there. It arrived, but the horse trailer didn't make it, or I don't know, or it went to a different hotel or something happened. And this was a wedding I was a guest at. And I was like, oh gosh. And like, I'm like, my planner mode came into, I was like, oh God, I need to go help. Like, this is what's gonna happen. So we had a carriage, but no horse. So I straight up lined up all the groomsmen. I was like, y'all need to pick this up. So we had six, like I think we had six groomsmen. I was like, y'all need to pick this up and start pulling. And it turned out awesome. But it's those moments like that, like the pictures are priceless. And I was like, and I talked to the groom after. I was like, oh my God, like, and he was like, I don't even care about the horse not showing up. Like, I actually think this worked out better. And I was like, oh, good. Okay. Because I was going to go yell at the horse company for you. But yeah, like it's moments like those spontaneous moments that really make, an event like that. So
That's hilarious. Now you just gave me a secondary idea. Now
have
I can get a
all
carrot.
your guy friends like pulling. It looked like a chariot eventually. That's what it
Yeah,
looked like.
exactly. I mean, yeah, exactly. I might want to get them like some like horse pins though to
Yeah.
go, so they have to, you know, that, that would be a
No,
nice
it's your
way.
wedding. You get to do whatever you want. That's what I say. Bride and groom,
Yeah,
it's your one day. Ask for whatever.
right. I mean, hey, it's
Your bridal party has to say yes. It's the rules.
it is the rules. That's right. Anything I say goes that
Yeah,
one day.
that one day.
Well,
Yeah, let's not get carried away.
yeah, yeah. That's the truth.
Yeah.
Man, I love that. And it's that kind of creativity that sort of that planners have to have. I mean, when things go wrong, you got to make lemons into lemonade, right?
And
Um,
just roll with the punches. Things aren't gonna, you can, we do timelines, we do walkthroughs, you come up with contingency plans, but you could have a very detailed, but things may go wrong, but It's how you adapt to the situation and move forward. And ultimately, shielding your couples from anything like, crazy that's happening. Like, honestly, like they don't need to know about anything else that's going on outside instead of, or enjoying their time with their bridal party, getting ready and stuff like that. That's what I cherish most, is letting them have their moment. And then ultimately you can fill them in after the fact about everything. But that day, let them live in bliss. Like, and try to manage as much as you possibly can. But knowing going into situations like things, we have it on paper, but things are going to have to change, and being adaptable and making and going with those changes and being flexible, really. And that goes for all vendors, like photography, like, things may be delayed, but you're still going to need to capture those portraits and stuff like that. But you may only have 10 minutes now versus 30. So I think all around just being flexible and adaptable is super important as vendors.
Well, I mean, we're in the service industry,
Yeah.
right? I say this on almost every podcast, so I'm sorry, but it's the truth. We're
Yeah.
there to serve others, and if you're not serving others and giving them what they want, you're not going to have a very long lifespan in this industry.
Yes. Yeah.
So, that's that's how I feel. So let's talk a little bit more about you, because my favorite way to wrap these things up is just to give people a little dive into exclusively who you are. PG-13, of course, because we are a family program. You know,
Yeah.
but I like to ask like some real simple questions that sort of give everybody like an idea as to like who you are as a person. So I think we've seen plenty of personality to this point, but these are a little bit more pointed questions and sort of exposes how you like to spend your time and what you like to do.
Yeah.
So with that, tell me, are you much of a TV watcher? And if so, is there any shows that are like really speaking to your heart these days?
Yeah. Oh gosh, COVID has really, yeah, TV has kind of like, I'm not too big into movies, but
Right.
TV for sure. Um, I did binge Bridgerton on Netflix. I think a lot of the girls have done that. um,
I was gonna say because I have no idea what that is.
oh, it's on Netflix. A lot. I bet a lot of your female listeners, I'm sure they've seen it or heard about it. Uh, so that one was the most recent. But I've been also I'm kind of like into the Criminal Minds, like Law and Order. Like I like that type and like medical dramas. So I'll that will always be on in the background in my house, like a rerun of Criminal Minds or like ER or any one of those type of dramas. I just like having that. That's my white noise. So, um, and then I've in the past I have made the mistake of watching it too late, and I'm like, I probably shouldn't have Criminal Minds on at 11 o'clock at night. That's probably not the smartest, but
It's like you're dreaming about people in surgery and stuff.
yeah. And serial killers, and I'm like, I live alone.
Ah!
Probably not the smartest thing.
That's funny. Is there but I gotta ask because I have guitars in my background here.
Yeah.
Is there like a particular type of music that you enjoy or listen to or a favorite band or anything like that?
I like a lot of everything, like country music, Bollywood music, which is Indian music, hip hop. My favorite artist would be Celine Dion. I'm a huge Celine Dion fan. But I think like 90s music was like, and when I say 90s, I'm talking like Backstreet Boys and stuff like that was probably the best genre.
I love it. That's great. I mean, it's so funny that a lot of those songs are like kind of back now for weddings and
Yeah.
events and stuff.
Yeah, I love hearing a good like Celine Dion as a first dance. I'm like, yes, let's do this.
It's like every client comes in, I think my heart will go on would be really great you know. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's funny. And true because I mean, like I said, the 90s are in. I know in my world of the business, people are asking for a ton of that kind of music.
Are they? Oh, good.
And even to the other side of things where they're asking for like Panic at the Disco and like all that kind of
I think a good mix is great. Like you don't like again in the audience, like you kind of have to cater to everyone or little of everyone. So I think a good mix is always a good idea.
it's always a good idea. It
And a
always works.
Beyonce at a wedding is always, I think, a good idea too.
It's always a winner. It's true. Um, That's cool.
It's a song, like, what's the most requested that you've heard of? Like,
Oh man, from the 90s?
or no, just in general, like if like the couples, like what is one song that people always request from your
Um, I
band?
I would say that's not First Dance related. I would say usually No Diggity has to make the playlist at some
Oh,
point.
okay.
Like most
I like
people are kind of wanting that song, and if they're not really wanting that song, they really do want it anyway.
they don't know they did yeah, until you play it and you're just like, "I didn't know I needed that in
I
my
can't
life."
tell you how many times, and this is a little revealing into my world for my listeners, but which maybe I don't do very often. But like, I can't say how many times people are like, I don't know that things like No Diggity is really what we want. I'm like, that's cool, that's fine. And then somewhere in the middle of the night, like the maid of honor or something comes running up to us and they say, "We want to hear No Diggity." And I'm like, you got to go clear that with the bride
Right,
first.
yeah. Because that was
And then
the
ultimately the
playlist.
bride comes back and she's like, "Oh yeah, if
Yeah,
we
go
could
for
just
it.
you could just play No Diggity, that'd be great." Like
Is there
it's
one
so
that's
funny to me.
always on the no playlist?
Was that
Is there one that's always on the no playlist for y'all?
pretty much anything to do with like line dances are pretty much done. Like
I don't like any of the organ I'm not like a Cupid shuffle or any like, I don't like
that
any of
kind of
the
stuff
organized.
almost everybody does not want.
Okay, good. I thought I was the only one, but I hate it. I don't know why.
Some people like it, and if
Some
they
people
do,
do, but yeah.
often what we do is if that gets requested on the day of, we just on a break or something we'll iPod it or something
Oh,
because
yeah,
that way it
gets
doesn't
played. Yeah, and it doesn't take it into your set time. Yeah,
exactly, yeah, because that's just kind of a general rule I think for most bands is that like if you didn't rehearse it,
yeah,
you don't want to wing it,
yeah,
because if you wing it and it doesn't go well, it reflects badly on your
and
brand.
that's what people are
you know
gonna remember. Yeah.
Right, exactly, and that's what iPods are for.
Yeah,
So or what we call iPods, which is now basically just streaming.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, so is there? Give me an activity that you like to do that's outside of your work life that really fulfills you and makes you feel good.
Yeah, so, I grew up playing tennis, and then I stopped for a while, and then just recently, I was like, "I need something, like, just, an outlet type thing." So I joined a local, Alta team here, so I get once a week, and then we practice, so, like, it's just something that I get to do, and for 2 hours or, on the weekend, a couple of hours a match or whatever, just to not think about things and, put your phone up, not checking emails, all of that kind of stuff. I just find that we're so accessible. Like even this, I like with I'm like, oh, I got an email. Like it's like you're always available. So like that's kind of my time to unplug really because if I'm in a match, I'm not answering phones or doing any of that. So
Right.
um, that's been a really and with nice weather and stuff, it's a perfect little activity for me. So
Yeah, it's a to me that with COVID, it sort of blew the doors off of when people were available. There used to be sort of at least a semblance, even with email and having a smartphone next to you all the time. There used to be some sort of understanding that at like 7:30, you might not get an email back until tomorrow morning.
And that is one thing that I've had to learn and change about myself too, because I was always responding, like, I will, I take calls in the evenings just because it's the line of work we're in where,
You have to.
they're working all day. So the only time they can talk is in the evening. So, but I have been trying to be mindful of like cutting it off at a certain time and then just not turning off the laptops and like not looking at emails unless it's like, the weekend of a wedding and I know then I'll respond to texts and stuff. But if it's just a regular week, then yeah, it it can like it affects your sleep. It affects all sorts of things they say. Like so, just trying to decompress. So yeah, tennis has been my outlet for stuff like that.
That's really cool. And that little scheduling email button is like my favorite thing. I absolutely love it because if I feel like I absolutely uh, well, let me back up and say this: that I think that if we enable clients from the beginning
Yes.
to let us do these things all the way until 11 o'clock at night, then that will become the expectation. However, to satisfy the inner alpha person that I I am and that you have professed to be,
Yeah.
I always want to get that email done and out of my way, because it's top of mind and it just came in and whatever. And even if I sit and type the email, I will schedule it if it's after a certain hour to
Yeah.
go the next morning, because
Yeah.
I think that there's value in feeling like you got it out of the way, but also essentially training the the client that, hey, you can't email me at 9:30 at night and expect for me to get back to you.
Yeah. No, I 100%. I think setting the precedent, and it's on our part as well too, to because I made that mistake early on that I was responding at all hours. And but no, I've definitely trained or started to train at least all my newer clients and everything that I'm willing to take calls to accommodate scheduling, but like certain you may not get a response.
Right.
Or, like if I'm going on a vacation, actually take the vacation. Like don't like it's hard because I'm like the only one that can respond, but like I notify people like, "Hey, I'm going to be out. So if you don't hear from me, like it must or if you really like it has to be really important for me to respond type thing." So, but I don't know when the last time I had a true unplugged vacation actually was because we're so accessible. So I think that's next on my list of things that I need to try to accomplish. Even if it's like a 48
Yeah, my assistant, right. My assistant tells me this like near daily. She's like, when are you going to stop and take a weekend? Just give me
Yeah,
a weekend, please.
yeah.
And it's funny is that when I decided to take on an assistant, I was just like, this is going to be great. I'm going to be able to take a vacation. And what I've done is I've given her a lot of work and then created even more work for myself. So now I have to figure out how to like break away from that.
Will always be work.
I know it's just the way.
It's growing and expanding, there's always gonna be something else. So I think it's ultimately like, you just have to, oh God, just pull the cord and do it.
When my assistant listens to this part of our podcast, she's gonna like literally throw it back in my face. She's gonna totally be like, "See, I've been telling you this
I
for."
actually take it back. There was one trip that I took that I truly did unplug, but it was not by choice. It was about 4 years ago. A friend of mine, we went to China and you can't access email there. Like they restrict everything. So our phones weren't working, our Gmail was not working. So we couldn't communicate. Our Instagram wasn't working, so we had no communication. So it was a real off the grid type moment for those couple of days. So I was like, that's just probably as close as I've gotten to, not, unless you're someplace that has no Wi-Fi is probably the only um, place that I can probably truly unplug.
About 6 years ago, I went to Jamaica for 17 days, and I was off the grid for pretty much all of those 17 days. Like um, the first, I'd say 5 days, I was constantly looking at my phone, trying to grab it, trying to see if I missed
To
anything.
check emails or to just like check like social media or news or pop like
All of it,
all of
emails.
it out?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was just like, let me just check back in with the world. And then by around day 6, I settled into this, like, I was kind of looking at it once a day to make sure that there was nothing in the world on
So fire.
fire.
Yeah.
By day 14, I was or no, I was there 17 days. So by day like 10 or 11, I didn't look at it for an entire week.
That's
And
awesome.
and
Like,
honestly, just now thinking about it, and thinking about it again,
what?
I'm like, I don't know how I did it.
Well, they say like what it takes 14 days to break a habit, or so like but it's like a detox or a cleanse. I think every year everyone should take 2 weeks off of, and usually it's the holidays. Like that's kind of the time where I like, I because I'm with family or I'm with
Right.
people, and you're so busy that you don't have time to do it.
Mhm.
But this year we were all at home, like, so it's basically, there was no gatherings or anything. So I felt like I worked through the holidays too this year and didn't really get a break then. So,
Right.
but I think it's smart that we should all, especially in our small business worlds, to take a moment, smell the roses too, and enjoy what we're doing and enjoy the fruits of our labor too. So,
I've told people before, I hope that one day I can get my business to a point to where every year, as the leader and the true like person that's driving the engine and that is forecasting the future and dealing with everything, is that I can somehow find a way to take a month off consecutively every year. So it's like maybe the whole month of January, I'm just gone.
I think that's yeah, that's an awesome goal.
Like
But do
it's
you find
actually
the
really
leader,
deep
the
inside of me to do it.
owner of the company though, like I have control issues of giving,
Of course.
like, or is that all of us? Am I not the,
You know,
like
I had the
I
control issues.
even like trying to bring someone in, I'm like, you can interview people, you could do all of this, but like it's until they actually come into your fold that are we a good fit? And so I'm having like it's like a little bit of I need the help, but then I'm like, do I want to give it up? Like it's a push and pull. So
Right. It is. It's very much a push and pull.
yeah,
But
I, I, I like the idea of taking a whole month off. That would be that's
me
a good
thinking about like how close I got with the 17 days, it made me and the ideas and like the vision and the anxiousness to get back to work and to like really do it.
yeah.
Um Whenever I took those 17 days off, I realized that it was now I've not lived this since then, and that's the hilarity of this whole thing. Is I realized how important it was, but I've not yet done it since. And now that I'm talking about it in extreme detail, my assistant is really going to get me.
Now
Uh,
it's
uh,
recorded and it's on the internet now. So
yeah,
it's there
I'm in
forever.
trouble.
So we're gonna hold you to it.
I'm in trouble, no doubt. But before I let you go,
Yeah,
I always try and remember to ask this question. I haven't been doing it here recently, but I just remembered, so I'm going to ask.
yeah. Go for it.
Um, and we'll make this our closing statement here. What's one piece of advice that you would give somebody that's just starting out in the industry that is, trying to find their way? What's something that you would say to encourage somebody like that that's trying to, get their contacts off the ground, find clients, and deal with the infrastructure build and all that kind of stuff. What would you say to them to encourage them to keep on?
I would I would encourage them to reach out to fellow or vendors and colleagues and use them as a resource and don't think of them as competitors, but think of them as because I didn't get here by myself. I had mentors. I had like and there's a lot of us that want to help the next generation, and or just we're all treated as a team and not competitors. So I would say get your name out there. If you need to intern, if you need to shadow, like ask for those opportunities. Like especially in the planning world, like I'm always looking for extra set of hands. Like,
Mhm.
um, and again, I don't necessarily if you have the time and can do it for free, awesome. If not, maybe work under someone for a little while and then branch off onto your own. But I think garnering those contacts and those relationships is probably ultimately what's going to serve you best. Because even in my world, like if I can't take something on, I refer it out to someone as well. Like, so keeping again, thinking don't think of everyone as competitors, I guess is my ultimate statement, and think of all of us as we're all working towards one goal. But yeah, definitely, shadow or intern or do something with an established person, I would say, for at least a decent amount of time, and then is that really what you want to do? Like, if you just woke up one day and was like, I want to become a wedding planner, I would maybe go into it and try it first before you left everything behind or made this huge career change, because I've heard of those stories where they're like, oh, I planned my sister's wedding and it was fun, let me go do this. Yeah, it's a little different.
Yeah,
So but yeah, like if and I know there's plenty of people out there that are willing to give opportunities to others. So and ask questions. Like that's not a sign of weakness to ask like and get opinions. And but yeah, I think trying to find like a mentor mentee type relationship would be super helpful as well.
I love it. I think that's a great way to wrap today up. Hey, Anita, thanks so much for being here. Everybody, check out Amina events. They're awesome. There'll be links in the comments below and in all the descriptions and stuff. So make sure you check out Anita. She's obviously amazing, right?
Thanks, Jacob. I had so much fun.
Thank you for being here. And this has been another episode of Southern Wedding Professionals. Like and subscribe, because if you don't,
I will find you.
I will find out where you are and you listening to all my episodes and not liking and subscribing. So make sure you do that before you go so you don't miss another awesome wedding professional. I'm Jacob, and I'll see you next time. See ya.